evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on Facebook, Twitch, and on X. I am Bryson Carver. Great to be with you guys an hour earlier on a Friday, but that's because we're actually going live in a couple of hours on the Grid Network and on my Carving Up YouTube channel as well as on Twitch, X, other platforms to react to rounds 2 through 3 of the NFL Draft. What a crazy night one of the draft. We'll get to probably the most shocking pick, which initially looked like it was going to be Vrabel Reese, number 5 to the Giants. That was a little surprising. Then you have Ty Simpson going 13th overall to the Los Angeles Rams, who obviously have the league MVP at quarterback and Matt Stafford. Get to that in just a moment. Also touch on some of the other, wild sources from the draft. The Cowboys, I got to admit, man, I'm hard on Jerry. Credit where it's due. I think Jerry Jones may have just hit a home run with the 11th overall pick in the draft and a pretty good selection after that in Makai Lemon as well. The Pittsburgh Steelers, my Steelers are taking a lot of crap today for a draft selection of Max Iheanachor. In large part because it looked like we were going to select, Makai Lemon, then Philly jumps ahead of us. And I'm here to tell you, it's the best thing. Sometimes in life, it's the best things that didn't happen to you. I think that applies today to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Get to that. Reaction to the rest of the first round of the draft. A lot of surprises in terms of who fell. Ruben Bain fell all the way to 15. My man, Jermon McCoy, I knew the knee concern was real. I didn't know it was so real that, hey, maybe the best corner of the draft won't even be a first-round pick. Okay, someone's going to get a steal in round 2, as me and my buddy Mike Guido said last night. Also get to a little bit of NBA playoffs. The Denver Nuggets, ladies and gentlemen, they in trouble. They're in big trouble. And is it time for me to apologize to Rudy Gobert? Stay tuned to find that out. Reaction to some of the other playoff games, what to expect from rounds 2 through 3, which again is tonight. I will be on for the first hour or so, and then I'll hopefully be joined by Mike Guido about an hour and a half into the show. So be active in the comment section. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Now let's get into last night's draft, I should say. But first, there were surprises in the first 12 picks of the draft. Again, the most notable was that, Vrabel Reese, number 5 to the Giants. Like that, didn't see that coming, especially as loaded as their defensive line is. Malik Neighbors was on Micah Parsons' draft reaction show, and he was like, what are we doing? Basically, we're already kind of stacked at that position at edge rusher, which obviously Vrabel Reese is kind of versatile at. He can play pass rusher. He can play middle backer. We'll see. There were other surprises. Again, Ruben Bain falling was a little shocking. The Chiefs trading up to get Mansour Delane. And then out of nowhere, the NFL world was...
We have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok, and flat out deceived.
Gobsmacked by the Los Angeles Rams, who came closer than anybody, except for the Seattle Seahawks, who did win the Super Bowl, came closer than any team in the NFL to winning the Super Bowl, because let's be honest, Seahawks-Rams was the real Super Bowl. Whoever won that game is going to beat New England, especially based on what we saw this past February. There are, it feels like a couple of pieces, not even away, but just let's fill out maybe some slight needs on our roster. Again, Kenyon Sadiq was still available. The Jets ended up selecting him later in the first round. You could have added Kenyon Sadiq. You could have maybe drafted Makai Lemon. I know some Rams fans were like, hey, let's just give Matt Stafford an elite trio of weapons with Puka Nacua, Devontae Adams, and Makai Lemon. Keep him in Southern California. Obviously went to USC. They decide to go with Ty Simpson, the quarterback from Alabama, with the 13th overall pick. And I'll be honest, initially I was like, whoa, what the heck? And then the more I think about it, I'm on reacting live to this on the draft show last night with Guido, and it's like, okay, you rationalize it. It's Sean McVay, maybe the smartest offensive coach in football. Les needs a great GM. Stafford's 38 years old. He's going into year 18 of his career. Very well could retire after this coming season, after this kind of one last Super Bowl push potentially for LA. Although Ian Rappaport reported today that the Rams are looking to extend Stafford, which makes this even more questionable of a first-round draft choice. And then right before I go to bed last night, look at my phone, and I'm like, oh yeah, it was just as bad of a pick as we all thought it was. When you watch the press conference, we don't have the rights to show you the footage, unfortunately, but it's all over the internet. The Les Snead, Sean McVay joint press conference. I thought the most memorable moment between these two in terms of a post-draft press conference was going to be 3-4 years ago when the Patriots drafted Cole Strange, and both McVay and Snead were openly laughing at Belichick. This takes the cake. Les Snead's kind of given the regular sort of jargon at the podium. Hey, we like this kid. Matt Stafford's our franchise. And Sean McVay is like death staring him. He's like not making eye contact with anybody else. They even showed the footage from the war room in LA where McVay gets on the phone with Simpson after they've basically made it official that they're going to draft him. And Simpson's like, yeah, I'm so excited to be a Ram today. He's like, yep, enjoy it with your family. Like McVay's like, I do not mess with this pick at all. And I think if you look at precedent, and this is a lot of the drafts from a measurables perspective, from an experience perspective, from an age perspective, upside, a lot of factors go into, evaluating these guys, some of which being, okay, how do guys with similar backgrounds physically, off the field, whatever the case may be, what system they came from, conference, all of those things come into question. And I saw this stat earlier today, which should make every Los Angeles Rams fan a bit concerned. Not for 2026, because Ty Simpson's not helping in 2026, unless, God forbid, Stafford goes down, but we'll see about that. I saw this stat today. The fewest college starts for any first-round pick since 2020. At number 4, Mac Jones. How'd that work? At number 3, even worse, Trey Lance. At number 2, Anthony Richardson. Number 1, most recently, Ty Simpson. Ty Simpson started 15 games in college football. Only Anthony Richardson started fewer college football games. So an optimist could say, well, it's not like a Michael Penix situation, or to use a more extreme example, a Brandon Weeden back in 2012 example, where it's like, hey, it's kind of close to a ceiling. And I liked Penix, for the record. Looks like I might be wrong on that, but kind of close to a ceiling, ready to play now. That's how an optimist could look at, somebody who's had a lot of college starts, somebody like a Ty Simpson who really hasn't, really just one season. You say, okay, he hasn't quite reached his potential yet. But in most of these instances, again, Mac Jones was the exception. Y'all can go back. I was never a Mac Jones believer. I never understood why he was a first-round pick in the first place. But for a guy like Trey Lance, well, he moves well. He's got a big arm. Not terribly accurate, but hey, he goes to Kyle Shanahan. He can fix those things. Even Kyle Shanahan couldn't fix Trey Lance. And then for somebody, like Anthony Richardson, it's like, yeah, he only started, what was it, 13 games in college football. Had a 500 record his last year at Florida. But oh my goodness, the size, the speed, the arm strength is ridiculous, which is why the Colts took him at number 4 overall back in 2023, based on pure upside. My question with Ty Simpson is this. There's not a massive flaw anywhere. It's like, okay, 6'1". It's not a Bryce Young situation, but you'd like it to be 6'2.5", 6'3" at the least. This isn't a Josh Allen we're talking about. Arm, good. Not a concern, but not special. Accurate? Yeah, he's pretty accurate. Not close to Mendoza, who went number 1 overall, obviously, to the Raiders. Athletic? Yeah, can move a little bit. Bama, I think, had some design runs at times when the Ty got in the red zone. Like, he can move, but he's not a special athlete, but he's also not a pure pocket guy. It's all of those reasons that in a draft like this that is outside of Mendoza, extremely weak at the most important position, especially if you're the Rams and the rationale is we're preparing for the future. This is somebody, I think, unless other GMs and other scouting departments viewed Ty Simpson higher than I do or as high as the Rams did, this is not somebody you even have a discussion about until at the earliest, early to mid-second round. Like Ty Simpson, respect to him, good for him. Listen, getting picked 13th overall as opposed to getting picked 38th, yeah, that's a big change in his contract, big difference in his contract, so good for the kid, happy for him. This decision makes no sense whatsoever for the Los Angeles Rams. And again, some have likened it to, well, the Green Bay Packers back in 2020, right? Aaron Rodgers, Packers thought he was kind of at the end of his run. They draft Jordan Love, late in the first round. Jordan Love had far more upside than Ty Simpson. Jordan Love in this draft would have went 2nd overall potentially behind Fernando Mendoza. Like he was that. I don't want to overdo how people viewed Love coming out of Utah State, but that 2020 class was historically great. Yeah, Burrow, Herbert, Jalen Hurts, and Love. But he would have been the 2nd best prospect in this quarterback draft. No question about it. The arm strength, all of it. He was raw, but people like those type of talents. It's why Anthony Richardson goes number 4 overall in 2023. It's why Trey Lance goes number 3 overall back in 2021. There's not crazy upside with this kid. And when you consider, well, next year, we expect, maybe we're wrong, but we expect next year's going to be a pretty good quarterback draft, right? Arch Manning, Dante Moore, could be some other names. Listen, no one thought Fernando Mendoza a year ago be the number 1 overall pick. Like, there's always, I say it every year, there's always somebody that kind of comes out of nowhere. We're like, oh my gosh, that's the next multi-time MVP quarterback. But if you're the Rams and you made the McDuffie trade, we knew it was going to be an all-in type of year for the Rams. You make the Trent McDuffie trade and then make him the highest paid corner in history. You're saying this is the one flaw in our football team. We're addressing it. We're giving this guy big money. He's one of the best players in his position in the league. We're going to add another Kansas City corner in free agency and say, hey, secondary's fixed. At this point, it's all luxury picks. And we trust Sean McVay to get the job done and lead us to a Super Bowl along with Matt Stafford in potentially his final season. Now, again, it's not over. The Rams still have plenty of draft picks, but it's and kudos to the Rams front office. It was reported by Jay Glazer that they told Stafford in advance, which that was a big issue with the Packers. Packers didn't tell Aaron about the Jordan Love selection. Rams let Stafford know ahead of time. Kudos to them. And again, Stafford knows, the Rams know. It's his franchise until he walks away. But this makes no sense whatsoever. If this is like the 2024 quarterback class where it's Caleb, Jaden, Drake, and people say, well, those guys have all showed promise. Yeah, Bo Nix, for example. Bo Nix has gotten to an AFC Championship game. Those guys showed promise. Yeah, but we all go back and look at the grades on those players. Like, this is one of those drafts where, save for 5 or 6 players, Mendoza, Reese, Caleb Downs, outside of a few guys, it's like, yeah, nobody that I think you should sell the franchise for per se, as it pertains to draft capital, which is why you saw most of the trades last night happen at the end of the first round, not the beginning. Because the high-end prospects this year aren't what they usually are, particularly at quarterback. Now, the Rams didn't move up, but it's a very kind of trying to have it both ways type of thing. The Rams came into this process with 2 first-round picks. They gave the 29th pick to Kansas City for McDuffie. That shows they're going all in this year. But then the higher pick that they got in the James Pierce Atlanta trade a year ago, they use on the future in a weak quarterback draft when the player doesn't have a ton of upside, and clearly the coach, Sean McVay, was not crazy about this selection. It's a very, very odd pick. But good for Ty Simpson. Listen, seems to be a good kid. We'll see how it plays out, but very, very, very strange. And again, Ian Rappaport reported about 30 minutes ago before we went on air, the Rams are having contract discussions with Stafford, about potentially extending him. So maybe they are thinking, hey, let's pull a Green Bay Packers, have Stafford start the next 3 years, then Ty Simpson's the franchise quarterback in 2029 or something? Okay. Listen, I trust McVay from any developmental process. Never forget, Jared Goff was maybe the worst rookie quarterback we've ever seen. He was awful back in 2016. Takes every year too. It's like, oh, Jared Goff's a pretty good franchise quarterback, and he's stayed in that class since then. A lot of that can be attributed to McVay. Real quick, I just saw some somewhat breaking news, not in relation to the draft, but according to Adam Schefter, the Green Bay Packers and Jaden Reed have agreed on a 3-year contract extension worth $50.25 million in new money, including $20 million guaranteed per agents Drew Rosenhaus and Ian Groupman. So Jaden Reed's extended. Listen, I think it's a good move for Green Bay. Obviously, they traded Dontavian Wicks to Philly. They let Romeo Doubs go to the Patriots. Packers have always been good at drafting and developing wide receivers, and I think them extending Jaden Reed's an example of that. All right, let's shift now, because again, the Ty Simpson thing I think caught everybody off guard last night. Let's shift now. Credit where it is due to America's team, the Dallas Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
So the Dallas Cowboys, and we knew they had a lot of freedom in this draft, 2 first-round picks, and they come into last night with picks 12 and 20. They end up making their selections at 11 and 23. So Dallas comes in. We know it's going to be all defense in the first round. Like no question. I know there were some that were suggesting they might go receiver with their second first-round pick. I doubted it. They had to go defense. And they find themselves in a spot at number 11 because of a lot of the offensive players, because of the Jordan Tysons and the, obviously we knew Jeremiah Love was going to go top 5, but the Carnell Tate's going as high as he did, number 4 overall to Tennessee, where it's, wait a second, Caleb Downs might be available once we get to him. They were not nervous that the Dolphins were going to select him at number 11. Obviously, or Miami wouldn't have made that trade to move back a spot. I think they were nervous. Crap. What if maybe the Giants in division trade back up into the first round after they made their selections of Noah and Arvell Reese? What if they add Caleb Downs? Which I guess they could have done that in theory at number 10, but they wanted to get their tackle. So be it. They're nervous about somebody jumping ahead of him. Dallas is like, we talked about there's like 5 or 6 can't miss players in this draft. Caleb Downs, one of them. Caleb Downs, you can make a case, was the best player in college football a season ago. Caleb Downs, listen, it says a lot when under the greatest and also the most demanding defensive coach of the modern college football era, Nick Saban, you're starting as a freshman. And Caleb Downs, mature, great ball skills, smart. Like, this guy is a can't miss player, and Dallas got him to add to their secondary. So this is one of the few of the first round as far as individual selections, A++ moves. And then you move back and basically kind of reacquire the picks that you lost, not the exact number per se, but reacquire the mid to late round picks that you lost in trading up to get Caleb Downs in order to trade back with Philadelphia. Oddly, Philadelphia takes Makai Lemon at 20. You trade back to 23 and take Malachi Lawrence from UCF. But again, some people had as kind of like a second round talent, second round prospect. I think I had him going to the second round. He wasn't in any of my mock drafts. But Dallas, to their credit, they're like, hey, we've addressed our secondary. We can continue to do so in the second round. I guess I don't think they have a second round pick, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think Dallas has. Yeah, Dallas does not have a second round pick. I want to double check. We can address our secondary potentially moving forward in the draft. But the Cowboys are in a spot where by their mindset is this simple, and I talked about this last night in our draft show, it's, okay, we led the NFL a year ago in drives that ended in points. Like, now some of that I said last night, some of that's a Brandon Aubrey stat because Aubrey, Little in Jacksonville, like some of these kickers are like, once you get past midfield, like it's on the board, they make the kick. Some of that's a Brandon Aubrey stat, who, by the way, I think Dallas extended the other day. But obviously you've also got a top 10 quarterback in Dak Prescott. You got a top 5 receiving duo in CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. By the way, Stephen Jones last night made it very clear Dallas is not moving off George Pickens after he signed his franchise tag yesterday. Cowboys fans probably feel good about that. I maintain you do franchise Pickens, you don't extend him. I maintain that. I do not think you give this guy a long-term extension, given the inconsistency as it pertains to effort, all of those things that I raise red flags about in Pittsburgh, we saw at the end of last year in Dallas. We've drafted well in the offensive line. We're going to use Terry's old phrase from a couple years ago. We're going all in. We're going all in on defense. And to get Caleb Downs at 11th overall, again, the fact that he fell that far was kind of shocking. I think I had Caleb Downs actually going number 5 overall to the Giants in my final mock draft. There were some that had him going to Washington. Like, him being available after the first 10 picks, given the fact that this is, again, as I talked about earlier, aside from a select few prospects, not that stacked of a draft as far as raw talent, being a superstar now type of talent, is kind of shocking. And it broke Dallas's way, to their credit. And I think when you look at, listen, we ripped Jerry Jones. I was at the front of this train. We ripped Jerry Jones for the Micah Parsons trade a year ago. The only way he was going to be able to justify it is by making moves like this. Like Caleb Downs, you never know for certain. We get this. Haven't played it down in football yet, but I'm 98.3% certain he's going to be a stud at the next level. He's going to be the anchor of that Cowboys defense for years to come. Malachi Lawrence, we'll see. Again, a lot of folks had him as a second-round grade. Dallas liked him enough. They understood that he'd definitely be available at 23. They recouped the assets that they gave up for Caleb Downs to move up. It's a smart business move of the Cowboys front office. It's a smart move by Jerry. And if these picks pan out, I'm telling you right now, as stacked as the NFC is, just the NFC West, Seattle, San Francisco, LA, people are high on the Giants, understandably so. You bring in John Harbaugh. He brought some Ravens with him, such as Isaiah Likely, for example. You bring in Arvell Reese, Noah. Hopefully he stays healthy. Like, you got the talent. Malik Neighbors, Jackson Dart hopefully takes the next step. Washington has optimism in the sense of hopefully Jaden Daniels is healthy. If he is, we feel like we can compete next year. They took Sonny Styles at number 7 to help that defense. I think we could find ourselves in a very real world, or there's a very real possibility, I should say, in which the Dallas Cowboys are a 12-win team once again. Remember, that was kind of a stretch for them at the end of the Mike McCarthy era, 12 wins, 12 wins, 12 wins, but they kept underachieving the playoffs, and there were a number of reasons for that. It was couldn't get stops on defense, O-line struggled to protect, Dak was not always his best in the biggest moments. Dallas, in many of those cases, did not have a legit number 2 receiver opposite CD. Well, now they do, Pickens. Now the defense, again, I said a year ago, if Dallas had a middle-of-the-road defense, they're a legit player in the NFC. Well, the problem is they had probably the worst defense in football a year ago, either them or Cincinnati. Well, if that's fixed, if Dallas goes from being the 31st best defense to the 14th best defense in the league, that's a team that can win multiple playoff games. It absolutely is. There's no question about it. Again, with the experience of Dak, getting another year with Brian Schottenheimer, Dallas has to be feeling pretty good about themselves after the last night, and they should. So there you go. Again, we'll react to the other first-round picks later in the show. I do want to take a quick break, but when we come back, a lot of folks are it came out on the Good Morning Football from the NFL Network, released the tape today, where Makai Lemon, the star receiver from USC, is on the phone with the Steelers. I'm going to be a Steeler. And then, hang on a second, he's on the phone with Armand Carr, the GM of the Steelers. Hang on, Philadelphia's calling. Philly's calling, and we know what happens from there. And folks are saying, man, the Steelers missed out. I'm here to tell you, sometimes the best things in life are what don't happen to you, and that applies to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll discuss that as well as the remainder of the first round coming up after this 1-minute break. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by. Again, an hour earlier on a Friday, but we appreciate everyone for stopping by the show. Again, a program update coming up in, I guess at this point, about an hour and a half. I will be live for night 2 of the 2026 NFL Draft, rounds 2 through 3. Mike Guido will be joining me probably sometime about 90 minutes into the show. So I'll be anchoring the ship. Hope everybody is able to stop by. Let us know what you think. We had a lot of activity in the chat last night. Everyone discussing all the trades and some of the draft picks and what have you. We even had some insider work going on in the chat. So we really appreciate everybody stopping by. Shout out to Arthur Hurst, to Tim Barnard, and for Paris Brown for also helping me and Guido out last night with some of the coverage. Great night. Again, it's one of my favorite shows of the year, the NFL Draft. And so I want to say night 2 through 3. It's night 2, rounds 2 through 3. That's where I get tripped up. But it's going to be fun. Again, we'll get to it later. The names that are on the board, there's going to be some good players taken tonight. I mean, the one that stands out the most for me is my man, Jermon McCoy, out of Tennessee, who I think is going to be a superstar at the next level. At the very least, a star. We'll see how it plays out. Get to more of what to expect from rounds 2 through 3 a little bit later. I do want to talk about my beloved Pittsburgh Steelers. Before I even get into the Steelers, can I just say a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for the city of Pittsburgh, PA. Not that this is a surprise. We figured this is a football crazy city. You got the draft coming to downtown Pittsburgh. Like this is going to be lit. And when the Steelers are on the clock with the 21st pick, and you hear, oh, mama, it's like, oh, here we go. Here come the terrible towels, and the place is going crazy, playing Renegade. It was unbelievable. Jerome Bettis came out and announced the pick. It felt like the NFL the last few years when they've had the draft in different cities year after year, they bring out a bunch of legends. I remember there was one year, the Detroit Lions, I'm very pro Detroit here, but don't have a ton of recent legends. And so they brought out like Eminem and Calvin Johnson. They brought out the bus, Jerome Bettis. They brought out Mel Blount. They brought out Lynn Swann, Big Ben, Terry Bradshaw. I mean, they brought out everybody, all the Steelers legends last night at the podium, which was dope to see. And the city of Pittsburgh shattered the all-time day one record. 320,000 people who attended the draft last night in Pittsburgh, PA. So shout out to all the Steelers fans, everybody else from the other fan bases who showed up at Pittsburgh. I mean, are we shocked? Of course they're going to show up and show out for the NFL draft. But this is a Friday, and we normally save this for Mondays following Steelers W's during the fall. But it's the NFL draft. It's time to discuss a Black and Yellow Victory Friday.
Black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow, black and yellow.
100%. And listen, it starts with what we saw this morning. This tape came out, Good Morning Football showed it. At least that was the first place I saw it, where Makai Lemon, the wide receiver at USC, who people are kind of shocked is falling as far as he has, the Steelers are potentially in a position to take him if he's able to fall to the 21st pick. He's on the phone with Omar Khan, the GM of the Steelers. Philly then calls him. Philly makes the trade with Dallas to jump ahead of Pittsburgh. And he's like, Philly's calling, and Omar Khan's going to be thinking, who's calling? And he gets selected by the Eagles, number 20 overall. And the Steelers make the quick pivot, and they decide to go with Max Iheanachor, the tackle out of Arizona State. Now, I've seen some in Pittsburgh. Andrew Filipponi, who does radio there, and a lot of folks in the Steelers media are like, oh my gosh, the Steelers missed out on this. This could have been it. I might agree if the Steelers had not made the Michael Pittman trade a month and a half ago. To where a big issue with last year with the Steelers, offensive line was an issue, but outside of DK Metcalf, man, it was a bare cupboard in terms of weapons. It was Calvin Austin. It was, again, you had tight ends, Freiermuth getting involved in the offense whenever Arthur Smith would let him. You had Darnell Washington, but then Darnell Washington got hurt at the end of the year. Like, it was slim pickings. They went out and got Marquez Valdez-Scantling. It was a thin cupboard as it pertains to the Steelers wide receiving core. So they go on and get Michael Pittman Jr. from the Colts and give him an extension. It's like, okay, now you got a legit number 2. So that's taken care of. Not that they can't continue to address receiver in this draft, but they're not screwed at that position, to say the very least. So Makai Lemon would have been great. Makai Lemon is in a position to where DK Metcalf, this is year 8, I think, for him coming up. Makai Lemon maybe by next year can develop into like the number 1 receiver of the Steelers. But smart franchises, and for all I've knocked the Steelers for years, I don't think they're a dumb franchise. I don't think they're the Cleveland Browns or the New York Jets. I think no one thinks that. With Mike McCarthy coming into the building, and I was as skeptical is probably kind. I was as hostile to the move as everybody else. Like, oh my gosh, we're going with a retread coach. And then the more I thought about it, it's, okay, he wouldn't have been my first choice. I'd have gone with the kid from Los Angeles, but that's neither here nor there. But Mike McCarthy's an offensive coach. Steelers haven't had that in the modern, in the modern NFL era. This is an offensive league. So you get an offensive coach who's good at developing quarterbacks, who's also, and this was a big blind spot for Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin, God bless him, could not develop an offensive line to save his life, or at least hire coaches who could. Mike McCarthy has a long history of doing that in Green Bay, in Dallas. It makes all the sense in the world that his first draft pick is not just an offensive lineman, but an offensive lineman who is, for all intents and purposes, a project. Max Iheanachor has not been playing football for that long. Like, this is kind of the opposite of, I should say the opposite of Ty Simpson. This is the opposite of somebody like a Akeem Mesidor who went with the very next pick to the LA Chargers. Right? Akeem Mesidor is like 25 years old. I think Mesidor is a good pick, but he's much closer to a ceiling than Iheanachor is. That if you develop this kid, if McCarthy and staff are able to put this kid in a position to where by the end of this year, going into next year, it's like, oh, he's developing into a very good to elite tackle. It's gigantic for the Steelers. I know there was a lot of buzz about, could the Steelers take Ty Simpson at 21? No one thought Ty Simpson, certainly that he'd go to the Rams, but even that he'd go at number 13, I wouldn't have loved that. Because I think the Steelers need to build the offense around the future quarterback. A lot of Steelers fans are hoping that it's Will Howard. Listen, I want to see Will Howard start the majority of games in Pittsburgh next year. I think, and I've been abundantly clear about this, and fingers crossed that the more time passes, hopefully my hopes and the hopes of some Steelers fans become a reality, that Aaron Rodgers isn't back. That doesn't help anything in Pittsburgh. Get Will Howard out there. If you want to bring back Mason Rudolph, okay, bring back Mason Rudolph, start the first month, give the keys to Will Howard, see what the kid has. It's not like he's got a bare cupboard in Pittsburgh anymore, right? You've got DK Metcalf. You've got, Michael Pittman Jr. You've got Jalen Warren. You've got Pat Fryman. Like, you've got a nice supporting cast of guys, and you've got an offensive coach. You were a 6th-round pick. If you don't show us in year 1, or I should say in your first year as a starter, but year 2 in the league after sitting for a year, this is the division with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson. Like, you probably aren't the guy. You draft somebody next year in a quarterback-loaded draft. Certainly more so than it was this year. So I think this is a smart pick by the Steelers. I think this is a looking forward type of move for the Steelers. I mean, in years past, when they've had holes in offensive line, they've either drafted one and failed to develop him. Broderick Jones is an example. Or like last year, and it's not that I didn't even like the player, because I think he's going to be good. You really didn't need Derek Harmon. And again, I like Derek Harmon. I understand heir apparent to Cam Hayward, okay. They needed help up front, especially at that time. You knew you were going to get an old Aaron Rodgers coming in. Now they're in a spot, we're going to get the tackle to protect Will Howard for this year. And if Will Howard's not the guy, Iheanacho's part of the future. We hope we draft somebody next year. So McCarthy is going to, this year and moving forward, drive me crazy with play calling, probably lack of creativity, all of it. But given, listen, let's be honest, McCarthy's in, I think McCarthy's 63, 64. Like, he's no spring chicken. He's not, in his late 70s or something, but he's not going to be the Steelers coach for 20 years. Let's put it that way. I look at him as kind of a transition coach. Okay, McCarthy's there for maybe 4 or 5 years. Then you move on to the guy who hopefully is your future beyond that. If you can develop the quarterback, whether it's Will Howard, whether it's somebody next year, and develop the offensive line, you're good. Hire a smart defensive coordinator. Hopefully the guy who's got in there now is able to help this defense play far better than it did a year ago when they were one of the 10 worst defenses of football and the worst fourth quarter defense in the NFL, worst fourth quarter scoring defense, giving up about 10 points per fourth. The Steelers have a lot to be optimistic about moving past 2026. So I know, listen, fan bases don't want to see in the first round, especially you're geared up for the draft, you're excited, you want the star receiver to go to your team so you can buy his jersey right off the bat, and I can't wait to see the current quarterback throwing this guy touchdowns or handing him the ball off, Jeremiah Love in Arizona. Offensive lineman picks are never sexy. But as I've heard many times, it's been said about an offensive line, it's like an AC system. Like, you only notice it when it's not working. It is the ultimate. You cannot be a successful team. You cannot be a team that looks to contend for multiple Super Bowls if you have multiple holes up front. And the Steelers, particularly at tackle, have for a decade, basically. So it's going to be a growing process for this young man, but he's got the measurables, big, strong. If he's able to be developed by McCarthy and this coaching staff, I love the pick. I wanted the Steelers to take a tackle. I wanted to see, I thought there was a potential Caden Proctor could be available at 21. I was hoping against hope that Monroe Freeling would fall to the Steelers at 21. I love him. I was thinking he's probably going to go 17 to Detroit. Then the Lions decide to take the kid from Clemson. And I'm like, okay, maybe he's going to, oh, no, Carolina takes him. Like, gosh darn it. I really thought we were going to get this kid. This was the next best thing. So pulling for Iheanachor. Welcome to Pittsburgh. And I think this is, as far as positional need, this is where I wanted the Steelers to go with their first round pick. This is where they needed to go, and they did. So I really like the selection. Okay, let's go ahead and do a sort of a long form review of the first round, the picks that we didn't develop or give a whole segment to. Maybe we might if the conversation goes in that direction. So obviously, everyone at the very least started 1-for-1 on their mock drafts. From 2 on is where there was some real separation. Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall to the Raiders. Obviously, the Heisman winning and trophy and Heisman and national championship winning quarterback from Indiana goes to the Raiders. We've known that for months now. Again, I saw a stat, I think Warren Sharp put it up, that Fernando Mendoza had I think 79 percentile, or not 79 percentile, 79% accurate throws based on kind of the analytics model they ran, the film that they looked at. 79% of Fernando Mendoza's throws were on target. Like, that's ridiculous. And listen, we understand it's much easier to get open in college than the NFL. It's much easier to you're throwing to more open guys as opposed to the NFL. You're throwing guys open. You're throwing to spots, not to players in more cases than not. But I think this is the guy who can be able to, I don't want to say take the Raiders back to the glory days. They've got a ways to go before they get there. But you've got Brock Bowers. You got, obviously, Genty. You brought in Linderbaum. It appears Max Crosby is there for the long haul, or at least for this year, at the very least. You've got Kubiak coming in. Kirk Cousins, we imagine, is going to start the season for Vegas. And as I've said over and over and over again, it certainly can't help to have the greatest quarterback of all time in the ownership group in the kid's ear. Now, Tom's going to be on the road a lot during the season, calling games, obviously, for Fox, but he'll be in correspondence at the very least with Mendoza, who I'm sure, if he's a smart kid and appears to be the case, he'll call on Tom's advice. That is, I think by late this year, by late 2026, so week 15, 16, you'll start to see, oh, okay, I'm starting to see that first overall pick quality. Offensive coach, you've got Bowers. We'll see what the Raiders do the rest of the draft. They have their next pick is 36 overall, so the fourth pick of the second round. They've got plenty of needs. They could get another receiver without question, and there's plenty of good receivers on the board. Could Denzel Boston fall to them? Could they take a flyer on my man Chris Brazzell? Like, we'll see. But if I had to guess, I'd say Kirk Cousins starts. A lot of it, so much of this depends on the schedule. Like, if the schedule's just murderer's row for the first month, then it's okay. Kirk can take the hits. Kirk's a veteran. Kirk's seen these things before. We don't want to throw Mendoza into the fire, ruin his development right off the bat. I'd say, without seeing Vegas' schedule, which will come out, I guess, in a couple, 2-3 weeks, I'd say week 8. So right around midseason, late October, like, okay, give him, a couple months in that role as a starting quarterback. Kirk Cousins will obviously help mentor him. The coaching staff will develop him. But I think Mendoza, again, clear and obvious number 1 pick in the draft. Raiders have been looking for their franchise quarterback for decades, and I think they've got it in Mendoza. Wasn't shocked. There were shockers last night. I wasn't shocked the Jets took David Bailey. I was only surprised in the sense that them not taking a meeting with him this week was, I thought, a little odd. Like, when you see, Guido was talking about this all throughout last night, that you see these guys just either skyrocket boards or plummet boards 72, 48, 24 hours, heck, a few hours before the draft begins. So it's always fluctuating. A lot of that is predicated on recent meetings, workouts. And so Bailey not being in the building at all, when Mendoza's going number 1, so that's off the table. At that point, if you're in New York, you're like, okay, you think it's going to be Reese or Bailey. You might want to have both guys in the building. Now, we might get some more behind the scenes info. Maybe it's already out there, and I've just not been into it, I guess, with Jets reporting. I agree with this pick, though. Arvell Reese has higher upside than David Bailey. But Aaron Glenn is not in a position to take upside. Aaron Glenn just came off a season as a defensive coach. The Jets were bad. They won 3 games. But as a defensive coach, and I think a former defensive back, his team did not record a single interception last year. And then you have hey, we're signing Geno Smith. He's going to lead us to the promised land, to which I've said, okay, if the promised land means the number 1 overall pick, then yeah, that could be the promised land because you get Arch Manning or Dante Moore or somebody. But you've got to get guys who can impact you right now. They made some moves in free agency to address the defense. You bring in David Bailey. He is he's a pure pass rusher, more so than Arvell Reese. And B, he's somebody that can impact the field quicker than Arvell Reese can. And when somebody on the hot seat like Aaron Glenn is, that's what you need. So I do agree with the pick. I think David Bailey is certainly a better overall pass rusher than Arvell Reese. Arvell Reese is the more versatile player. But I think this is, based on where the Jets are at, this is the smart move. Jeremiah Love, 3rd overall to the Cardinals. Did surprise me a little bit because I think in every single mock draft, I had Jeremiah Love going 4th overall to the Titans. It's an odd pick for Arizona. So Love is by a mile. His teammate, Jadarian Price, went with the last pick to Seattle by a country mile. Best running back in this draft. I mean, my man Guido last night said that there are some Adrian Peterson physical qualities about him. So if he even reaches anything close to that peak, we're talking about a Hall of Fame-like career. But if you're taking a running back this high, Saquon Barkley, number 2 overall in 2018, was the highest running back taken, I believe, before this. He's the highest running back selected, Jeremiah Love, 3rd overall, since Saquon went to the Giants at number 2 back in 2018 out of Penn State. You're expecting a guy who's going to be an all-pro caliber type of dude. Somebody who, once you get your quarterback next year, because Cardinals obviously don't have it now, Jacoby Brissett, once you get your quarterback, he and Jeremiah Love, these are the foundational pieces of our offense. And again, you've got Trey McBride, who's a wildly underrated tight end. You've got Marvin Harrison Jr., who kind of slowly kind of came more into form, got off to a rough start last year. Toward the end of the year, looked a little bit better. Arizona's got pieces, but they've got Trey Benson. And my man Paris Brown from the Grid Network, who's a big Cardinals fan, was like, God, we've already got Benson. Like this, Cardinals got a lot of needs. Running back ain't one of them. Like this felt like, especially early in this draft, as somewhat evidenced by the Arvell Reese pick a couple picks later for the Giants, that it was a lot of who's the best player. Even if we were kind of good at that position to begin with, who's the best player available? We're going with him. And so I do think Jeremiah Love's going to be a multi-time, I hesitate to say multi-time Pro Bowler because being a Pro Bowler holds like no weight nowadays. But I mean like true, genuine, like you earned it, you were voted to the Pro Bowl type of guy. It's going to be, I think we could see a little bit of a rough start. I think he'll be better than Genty was last year with the Raiders, but Genty inherits a team, terrible offensive line, Cardinals, same thing. That's why I honestly thought they'd take a lineman at number 3, Noah, somebody like that, Spencer Fano, so we'll see. So Jeremiah Love 3rd overall. Cardinal Tate, number 4 to the Titans, makes a ton of sense. I thought Jeremiah Love would go number 4 to Tennessee, even after he was off the board. Tennessee hasn't had any playmakers in years, and they really, since obviously Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, they need to get some weapons for Cam Ward. Cam Ward got off to a brutal start at the beginning of the season. I attribute a lot of that to A, inexperience, and B, atrocious coaching by Brian Callahan. You come in this year, okay, Salas come in, you brought Brian Dable on to be your offensive coordinator. Dable, not a very good head coach, but I do believe in him as an OC. And that year 2 jump, it's a real thing in the NFL. We saw it with Drake May, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, technically you could either of Patrick Mahomes year 2, so to speak, are good because his official year 2, he won the MVP. His second year as a starter, he won the Super Bowl. So you can include Mahomes in that as well. That year 2 jump is, okay, you need to kind of know by Halloween, early November. I said this about Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams made a year 2 jump. You kind of need to know, okay, is this our guy? Is this our franchise quarterback? The Titans are going to be in that spot this year. And so to get him that true number 1 weapon, I do think Cardinal Tate is the best wide receiver in this class. Again, he's not somebody that's going to blow you away with speed. But Cardinal Tate gets open. Like that's, you can't, speed matters. But I remember distinctly, I think it was 2017, when John Ross broke Chris Johnson at the time, who had the all-time 40-yard dash record. John Ross, who was from Washington, broke the record. Bengals take him in the top 10. He was a total bust. Like, you've got to have technique, and he does. He just gets open. And listen, it's a weird spot because it's like he's the best receiver in a lot of people's eyes, including mine, in this draft, but he was never once the best receiver on his own college team because it was Ibuka last year, and it wasn't really Ibuka last year. It was Jeremiah Smith the last 2 years, but even Ibuka was better than him last year or 2 years ago technically. So. But I've always been a Cardinal Tate believer, and I think he'll be a good fit with the Tennessee Titans. Get Cam Ward his legit number 1 weapon. I think it's a very smart pick for the Titans. This is where people got really surprised, including myself, was Arvell Reese going number 5 to the Giants. So Arvell Reese, as I discussed with him not going second to the Jets, is somebody who has a higher upside than David Bailey, is more versatile than David Bailey in terms of what he can do in the different positions he can play on defense. And there also is the element of, okay, what do we always say about the Giants, even though they're a terrible football team? Yeah, but they've got a great defensive line. And they do. Even after moving Dexter Lawrence to Cincinnati, they still got a great defensive line. So they didn't really need him. They've got Brian Burns. They've got Bill Carter. Like, they're fine on the edges. And obviously, Reese is going to play on the inside. Now there's a question about Thibodeau. Does Thibodeau move in the inside? And the Giants said they're not going to, or I guess it was reported that the Giants are not going to trade Thibodeau. We'll see if that remains to be the case. The rationale behind this is, I would imagine, for the Giants and John Harbaugh, who is an adult in the room, Super Bowl champion, did a good job with the Ravens. His rationale and the Giants' rationale has to be this. We've got one of the best defensive lines in the league. Arvell Reese is on our board. It's either him or Caleb Downs, I would imagine. is the best player on our board at this point at number 5. Take him because he's the best player on the board, because that's kind of been the trend at this point in the draft. And also, we can kind of move him around. We're going to give him not quite an equivalent role that Ohio State gave him, where he's mostly playing pass rusher, but he will play the middle linebacker spot. We're putting him 80% middle linebacker. He'll come on blitzes. We'll occasionally bring him off the edge. If God forbid there are injuries, and it's the NFL, to some of our top defensive, or some of our top edge rushers, Arvell Reese can fill that role seamlessly. So it was a surprising pick, but I think the Giants are better off for it. Mansour Delane went 6 overall the Chiefs. I could be wrong. I haven't heard it reported yet. I thought watching the draft live, because the Titans go Cardinal Tate at number 4, and it's like, okay, Kansas City trades with Cleveland to get to the 6th pick. There's no way, in our minds, no way the Giants, because of their D-line, as we just mentioned, are going to take Arvell Reese. So the Chiefs are trading up to 6 to get Arvell Reese. And then the Giants take him. I do think Kansas City, maybe I'm wrong, I think they moved up to try and get Arvell Reese because they didn't think the Giants would take him. So they decide, I imagine, backup plan, we're going to go Mansour Delane. And there were a lot of folks who were suggesting, hey, what about Jordan Tyson? Kansas City's got enough injury concerns to begin with on their offensive line, obviously with Mahomes. Travis Kelce's not an injury concern, it's an age concern. As much as I believe in Jordan Tyson's potential upside, and he ended up going 8th overall to the Saints, there are injury concerns there, and that's kind of the last thing the Chiefs need right now. And there were no other receivers. You could have taken Lemon, but that would have been a reach at number 6. There were no other receivers on the board that's like, oh gosh, we've got to take this guy. The Chiefs have a history under Brett Veach of drafting and developing corner very well. L'Jarius Sneed, Trey McDuffie, like they're good at developing guys in this position. By the way, Sneed gone, and they obviously moved McDuffie during the offseason. We're going to get the heir apparent for him. And so Mansour Delane is the safest pick at corner. I think the best corner is Jermon McCoy. But again, injury concerns, Kansas City's not in a position to where they're like, hey, we're going to take a swing on Jermon McCoy. We're not sure what the status of his knee is. We're going to go Mansour Delane at number 6. It's an okay pick. Sonny Styles isn't going 7 to the Commanders. That's who I would have picked if I were Kansas City. But Delaney at 6 is not a bad selection at all, and the Chiefs develop corners very well. Sonny Styles goes number 7 overall, as I just mentioned, the Commanders. The first thing I thought when he was selected, he's the best overall pure linebacker in the draft. The first thing that I thought of was, oh man, he's got Bobby Wagner to kind of help mentor him. Like that's Dan Quinn as his coach. Bobby Wagner at the end of his run as an all-time great linebacker, future first ballot Hall of Famer, is going to be a guy who's in the film room with him, helping him out on the practice field. Like that's as good of a situation as you could ask for. There were some folks speculating, could Washington go receiver in the spot? I think that was more so if Tate had fallen to number 7. Terry McLaurin, again, kind of shocking at this point, but he's 31. Jaden's coming off an injury. You got to get a defense. Like the defense was the number one reason that this team didn't go deeper in the playoffs 2 years ago, and they still made the NFC Championship game. So I think Sonny Styles is the smart selection, or was the smart selection for Washington. Jordan Tyson going number 8 to the Saints. I had Jordan Tyson, I think, in the majority of my mock drafts in this spot. My last mock draft, I think I had him going to Washington. I think I had him going to Washington. So there is the injury concern, and now it's okay. Jordan Tyson has injury history. Chris Olave. Now, Olave, knock on wood, thank God, he's had a lot of concussion issues in his career. He was able to stay healthy a year ago. The hope for the Saints, and I think the rationale for the Saints is very, very similar to one of the teams in their division, the Carolina Panthers, a year ago, is in almost the exact same draft spot. Panthers last year at 9, Saints this year at 8. We have a young quarterback. We hope he can develop in our franchise quarterback. Let's get him a big-bodied, contested catch guy at wide receiver, kind of a safety blanket, kind of a get-out-of-jail card, so to speak, on 3rd and long or on deep balls. The Panthers took Tech McMillan out of Arizona last year, and the Saints take Jordan Tyson this year out of Arizona State. Big body, can make contested catches. They hope Tyler Shuck's their guy. You've got Olave. You've got Jordan Tyson. You added Travis Etienne during the offseason. Now, my concerns with the Saints are Kellen Moore related, because can Kellen Moore utilize those pieces? I don't think so. But the Saints have a nice young offensive core that they can hope to take a step up from where they did at the end of last year, which was pretty good. They played good football at the end of the season. Spencer Fano at number 9 to the Cleveland Browns. Y'all know I hate to say it, but I try to be objective on the show. I try to be fair on the show above all else. I think Cleveland has handled the last 2 drafts in the first round basically flawlessly. So you have the second pick last year. You could have taken Travis Hunter, obviously. You trade with the Jags, and I still think Travis Hunter's going to work in Jacksonville. But you trade with the Jags back to number 5, get an extra first-round pick, for next year. And then in this draft, you're like, guy we like's probably going to be available at 9. Kansas City, again, I think Kansas City was trading up to get Arvell Reese. Kansas City doesn't feel that way about their guy. Make a move to the Chiefs, trade back to number 9. We need a receiver, and we need a tackle. They ended up getting the receiver later in Casey Concepcion from Texas Tech, we'll get to later. But you take Spencer Fano, who's the safest tackle pick in this draft. Mauanoa has the highest upside, but there's the back issue, herniated disc, how healthy he's going to be this year. We've got to protect. I think their starter this year should be Shedeur Sanders. Let's give him a full season. Deshaun Watson should not see the field as a starter next year, but it's the Browns. They don't manage quarterback very well. But in this spot, with that selection, taking Spencer Fano, trading back, I think this was very, very well managed by the Cleveland Browns. So Cleveland did something right. Credit where it's due.
Cleveland! This is for you! Oh!
And I hate, especially with the draft in Pittsburgh, it's just like, oh gosh, I don't like giving the Browns credit. Now, they're still the Browns, but I think this was a smart draft pick. And then Francis Mauanoa went with the very next pick to the New York Giants. I thought when the Giants made the Dexter Lawrence trade last week to get the 10th pick from Cincinnati, it's okay. They're going to take best player available at 5, tackle at 10. That's exactly what they did. Arvell Reese is the best player on the board, and then went Francis Mauanoa at 10. Definitely the best tackle on the board in my mind. But I mentioned the injury concern. Again, that's why Spencer Fano was a safer pick. Or Spencer Fano, I should say, was a safer pick. You do think about this if you're the Giants, that what's the most notorious danger zone in the NFL as it pertains to playing surfaces? The MetLife Stadium turf. It can't, like that, I'm dead serious. That does concern me a little bit. When you have a guy coming in with the back issue and you're hoping, along with Andrew Thomas, can protect both sides of Jackson Dart. So he's going to go to right tackle. Thomas is going to stay at left. If it works out, then this is a great pick for the Giants. But you are kind of holding your breath about the injury concern playing in that stadium. So we'll see. Then Dallas obviously trades up to get Caleb Downs. I said it earlier. I think that's a phenomenal pick. I think it was the obvious pick as Downs continues to fall. It's like, oh my gosh, the Cowboys are going to get this guy and help their secondary. They make the trade with Miami to ensure that no one jumps ahead of them. They take Caleb Downs. I talked about earlier. Great pick. I think this guy's going to be a 10-year star in the NFL. I really, really do. Caden Proctor at number 12 to the Dolphins. Again, they obviously traded back a pick. So a lot of draft analysts were discussing character issues in the sense of there are legit concerns about work ethic, that's a big one. The draft's a lot of ifs, though. If the kid puts it together, he's probably the most athletic tackle in the draft. Like, we're talking 6'7", 3. I mean, the guy's massive. If he pans out, the Dolphins have the left tackle for the future. But it reminds me a little bit of, and some serious off-field issues have potentially derailed his career. But it reminds me a year ago when the Falcons took James Pierce, where it's, oh God, yeah, the upside's there. Fast, talented. What's the work ethic? Now, Pierce played well last year. Again, there's some serious disturbing off-field stuff. For the Dolphins' sake, you hope this works. Jeff Hafley's a hard-nosed defensive coach. Can defensive coaches develop offensive line? It's more times than not. The answer is no, but we'll see how it plays out for Miami. Already discussed Ty Simpson. I think the pick makes absolutely no sense for the Rams. Discussed that in the show. The Baltimore Ravens. This to me, Mendoza was the only draft pick we knew was going number 1 of the Raiders. I thought Baltimore taking Vega at number 14 was a foregone conclusion once he fell there. Baltimore lost Tyler Linderbaum in the offseason to the Raiders. We say all the time, the number one place, ask any quarterback in the NFL, the number one spot you do not want to have to face pressure up the middle. I don't care if you're Jared Goff and you're basically immobile. I don't care if you're Lamar Jackson, who's one of the greatest running quarterbacks we've seen. You do not want to have to face pressure coming right at the gut. And especially with Derrick Henry, who's a in-between the tackles type of running back, you need to shore up that spot. So by far best guard in this draft out of Penn State. I think that's a very smart pick by the Baltimore Ravens. So that's two division rivals I have to give credit to. I don't like this. Reuben Bain Jr. at number 15 the Bucs is a steal. It's a steal. Myself and Guido were talking about this last night. The arm length thing was clearly a concern by many scouts. I think most of us thought he would go top 10. I had him going number 8 to the Saints. It's a concern. But when the kid wins his one-on-one matchups, he's the second best pass rusher in the pure pass rusher in the draft. So for Tampa to steal him here, and I know folks were suggesting, Tampa could go offense. They could have lost Mike Evans to San Francisco. I get it. But if you're Todd Bowles, like the seat's not as hot as Aaron Glenn with the Jets, but it's warm. I mean, Tampa Bay quietly kind of choked at the end of last season. They went from contender for the 1 seed, kind of like Indianapolis, but at least the Colts had a quarterback injury excuse. They went from contender for the 1 seed to losing record and out of the playoffs. Like, how does that happen? A lot of that was because their defenses over the last couple of years under a defensive coach in Bowles haven't been very good. They've got to invest in that side of the ball. Going through Reuben Bain, the fact that he fell to them at 15, great spot for the Buccaneers to be in that spot. Jets fans were mad at the 16th pick, taking Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon. Again, it's easiest to now because they ended up getting Omar Cooper later in the draft at number 30. If you're the Jets, again, they're one of these teams, they just need players. I don't care where you put it, they need players. And when you do take David Bailey, who can help you right now, rushing the quarterback, you look at your offense, it's like, ugh. It's Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall. You cross your fingers if he stays healthy. Mason Taylor showed you production last year at tight end. But do you think, and I like Mason Taylor, but do you think he's going to be the guy that's, if you bring in your franchise quarterback next year, you hope your franchise quarterback, Mason Taylor's going to be like one of the centerpieces of that offense? Kenyon Sadiq can be. And there's discussion, could they move him to kind of like a glorified wide receiver? Maybe. He's a great pass catcher. I think a lot of us feel like, who watch college football, feel like he was underused at Oregon. I liked the pick. This is about in this mid-first round area where I thought he would go. There was some suggesting he could fall. I think this is a good pick by the Jets, and especially that they later got Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana at number 30 at wide receiver. Now they've got an offense where it's like, okay, there's some high-end talent here. And so, Geno Smith's job isn't going to be impossible in 2026. Blake Miller going to the Detroit Lions. By the way, I'm sure that he's going to get this speech. I'm sure he's gotten to the Detroit Lions building by now. I'm sure he got this speech the second he walked into Detroit.
Kneecap.
Yes, that's what they do in Detroit. And, I was talking on the draft show last night, the first round draft show, that it's amazing how Detroit, how things in the NFL could change so quickly. 2 years ago, the Lions, if it's not Philly, Lions got the best offensive line in football. God, it's a legitimate liability now. And so they had to take a tackle. Listen, Blake Miller was a very polarizing pick in the sense that you had some who viewed him as, around a first round grade. There's others who had second round. He still had some pretty good tackles still on the board. Iheanachor is more of a project. The Lions probably want a more ready now type of guy in Blake Miller. If he pans out, good for Detroit. They need to protect Jared Goff at all costs because Jared Goff, when the pocket breaks down, is not a very good quarterback. Everyone gets worse, but Jared Goff gets demonstrably worse from his regular production. So I don't know if I love the player in the spot. The pick, in terms of positional need, does make sense for Detroit. I expect them to address their defense moving forward in the draft. This was the first kind of, not shock, but head scratcher of the draft. Caleb Banks being the first defensive tackle off the board. Not Caden McDonald from Ohio State, not, Peter Woods from Clemson, who ends up going to the Chiefs at 29. So was it a position of need? Sure. But I felt like most mock drafts, with good reason, I was one of these people who had this. had Dylan Thieneman going to the Vikings at number 18. Harrison Smith likely retiring. You bring in his heir apparent, his replacement. You're in good shape moving forward. I feel like this is where does ESPN have him? I had him as a mid-second round prospect. I'm trying to find. Oh, gosh, yeah, they had him as the 86th best player. ESPN's got him as the 86th best player in the draft. So I don't know if I'd have him that low, but that's an odd pick by Minnesota. And by the way, this is the front office who the last few years, their draft picks haven't been ideal necessarily. I don't love it. And it's not just because he's a Florida Gator, by the way. I did see this, though. I saw it right before I went on the air that has me asking some questions. Listen, everyone's got their quirks. I got mine. Everyone's got theirs. But this is from Alec Lewis, who's a reporter in Minnesota. Caleb Banks says he has 2 pythons, a chameleon, and a cane corso. They will all be moving to Minnesota. There are possibly more to come as well. A tarantula was mentioned. Okay. So there you go. There's Minnesota's next player. Listen, he may be great. I think he's a good player. I don't have him as a first-round prospect, but he might very well be a very productive player. Monroe Freeling to the Panthers at number 19, I should say, broke my heart because I was really wanting him to fall to Pittsburgh a couple of picks later. Listen, I love this kid. I think he's somebody who's, is, again, 6'7", big, unbelievably athletic, great in pass pro, run blocking. I would have liked to see him fall to Pittsburgh. The Panthers have a pretty good O-line, but I think their thing is we're going to make Bryce Young's life as easy as it could possibly be. We like our weapons. Again, we drafted Tech McMillan a year ago. That helped Bryce Young take a step in year 3. We hope, doubt Carolina exercises, that fifth-year option. We hope that Bryce Young can take another step in 2026, give him some extra protection. I think Monroe Freeling is fantastic. Makai Lemon to the Philadelphia Eagles. They trade with Dallas. Dallas gets the 23rd pick and some extra mid-round picks. Philadelphia moves up to 20. Again, looks like the Steelers are going to get Makai Lemon. I'm fine with that. Makai's an excellent player. The Steelers didn't really need him that much, at least as much as they needed a tackle. Makai Lemon to the Eagles at 20. I think this is the official sort of nail in the coffin. A.J. Brown's going to be a Patriot next year. Like, Ryan's been on the wall. A.J. Brown's going to be a Patriot next year. It's reported that the deal's going to happen post June 1st due to some salary cap, circumstances there. But this is a post A.J. Brown move. So you have Makai Lemon, Devontae Smith. You added Dontavian Wicks, Hollywood Brown. Like, you've got a nice kind of group of receivers. Philly does have a second-round pick, right? Let me just double check. Okay, yeah, 54th pick. I would be really, really interested in terms of best overall players available. I would be really interested to see if they don't go, because I think the 2 pass rushers, Zion Young, Cassius Howell, are going to go pretty early in round 2. I wonder if a guy like Eli Stowers from Vanderbilt, the best tight end left on the board, if he either falls to Philadelphia or maybe Philly moves up a couple picks to get him. Because for the last year or so, it's felt like, are they going to replace Dallas Goedert? Kind of getting up there in age. That might be a spot where they do it. Again, new offensive play calling in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, who's had no stability at OC, going back to his days at Bama as a freshman, making an OC change for the national championship game. But I think for Philadelphia, this pick makes a lot of sense. Getting the heir apparent to A.J. Brown, Makai Lemon was the best player left on the board in my mind. I already talked about Max Iheanachor to the Steelers. I really like the pick. I believe that McCarthy and the staff can develop him. And if they do, this kid can be a star player, star left tackle for a long time to come. In Pittsburgh, Akeem Mesidor at number 22. Shout out to my man Drew, who's a big Chargers fan. He was down the pick. Some Chargers fans were a little iffy on it. Here's the thing. Akeem Mesidor's 25 years old, so he's pretty close to his ceiling. With that being said, very productive player in college. As my man Guido pointed out last night, obviously Ruben Bain took up most of the double teams. Mesidor destroyed guys in terms of his one-on-one matchups all season long in college football. And again, if you're the Chargers, you lost Joey Bosa last year. Khalil Mack's back this year, but this is year 13 for Mack. He's not getting any younger. John Harbaugh likes his pass rushers. Let's go and get one to be our guy for the foreseeable future. So I do think I do like the pick. They could have gone O-line in that spot. Again, they're good at tackle. The Chargers' weakness in terms of O-line is inside. I don't think at 22 that would have been a pick worth making. Again, not to fast forward, but Keelan Rutledge to the Texans at 26. Do the Chargers need a tackle that bad to reach at 22 as opposed to addressing a position of need? who would go in more of that number 22nd overall spot, I like the pick for the Chargers. Makai Lawrence going to Dallas. We talked about the Cowboys earlier. I don't know if I love Makai Lawrence going at number 23. I will say his draft stock has risen a lot over the course of the last week, and Dallas does have a history with guys with the pass rushers with the last name Lawrence, right? Now, that guy went on to win a Super Bowl in Seattle, kind of called a shot in the process, but I think Dallas made a solid pick there. I probably would have gone Zion Young, but we'll see how he pans out in Dallas. Makai Lawrence. Casey Concepcion going to the Cleveland Browns with the 24th pick. I like it. Again, someone else's draft stock has risen a ton in the last few days. Great speed. Again, Browns just need players on offense. They get their tackle, being able to get a weapon for Shedeur and or Deshaun. I still think, as I'm 50-50 on Shedeur, I think it's ridiculous if he's not the starter. Deshaun Watson's not going anywhere for you. Let's see if Shedeur's your guy, and if he's not, you draft somebody next year. So someone's going to be throwing a Casey Concepcion. We'll just see who it is. Dylan Thieneman falling to 25 to the Bears is great for Chicago. Again, I thought that he would go to the division rival, the Minnesota Vikings, at 18. I think a lot of folks were surprised that he fell all the way to number 25. I and most had him as the second best safety in this draft to Caleb Downs. For him to fall to Chicago, who had some issues in their secondary, they're fine. I should say in their secondary, they're fine at corner. Back end in terms of, their safeties, they needed help. Getting a hard hitter, smart football player, I think is a really good move by the Chicago Bears front office. Keelan Rutledge to the Texans. They ended up trading with Buffalo, who traded all the way out of the first round. So we'll see them obviously make some moves tonight. But Keelan Rutledge going to the Houston Texans with a 26th pick makes sense. Houston needs help in the worst way in their offensive line. I thought they were one of the, if not the most likely candidate of late first-round teams to move up to get an offensive lineman. So I think it was a good move by them. And then this is where the trade just, again, we're happening out the wazoo. San Francisco traded out of the first round. The Dolphins traded back in to take Chris Johnson, the corner from San Diego State. This pick did kind of leave me scratching my head a little bit. Not that Chris Johnson's not a good player, but is Chris Johnson the second best corner in the draft? No, I respectfully don't think he is. I think that title belongs to Mansour Delane. Delane is the safer pick than Jermon McCoy, but I think it's McCoy and Delane, whatever order you have them in. Those are the two best corners in this draft. And then you talk about guys like Avion Terrell, Colton Hood, also a guy from Tennessee. Chris Johnson felt like, again, more of a second-round prospect and certainly not the second corner off the board. Miami's draft has thus far has me not shaking my head, but scratching my head a little bit. Patriots trading up with Buffalo again. Buffalo moving back again. Patriots trading up to get Caleb Loma with the 28th overall pick. Be able to put him opposite Will Campbell. That was an issue for the Patriots, particularly. They got exposed big time in the Super Bowl, not being able to protect Drake May. Caleb Loma was the best prospect left on the board at tackle. They get him. Kansas City takes Peter Woods at 29. I thought Kansas City might take a receiver in that spot, given that we've got our DB, maybe take a receiver here, give Mahomes some help. I guess they're going to do that in the second round. Or actually, yeah, they have a second round pick. They don't have a third round pick because of this trade. Listen, Peter Woods is somebody who's versatile, who can play inside and outside. This does feel like a little bit of a little bit, not to the same level because Derek Harmon's a pure nose tackle. Peter Woods is not. But a little bit what the Steelers did last year, where it's the heir apparent to a franchise legend in Cam Hayward. Chiefs are doing that with Chris Jones and bringing Peter Woods in. Again, I like the pick. I'm not crazy about it for Kansas City. I still think at some point they really need to get Mahomes some weapons. But we'll see if they do that tonight in round 2. Omar Cooper Jr., the Jets trade with Miami to get with San Francisco to get the 30th pick, take Omar Cooper Jr. I think this made a lot of Jets fans feel a little bit better about the Kenyon Sadiq pick. I think the Jets coming out of this first round of the draft, and it's weird to be giving the Jets and Browns props today, but I think if you're a Jets fan, okay, a lot of us wanted Arvell Reese, but David Bailey can help us on day one. And now we have 2 legit receiving options for this year for Geno, but in 2027, hopefully our franchise guy, where it's okay, we've got Garrett Wilson, and hopefully Omar Cooper can develop. He's somebody who's going to play more in the slot than anything. Kenyon Sadiq, okay, we like our group here. So thus far, Aaron Glenn, Jets front office, I think a job well done thus far in this draft. So having 3 first-round picks, you better hit on them, and we got to see how these guys play out and develop. But I think on its face, it looks pretty good. Keldrick Falk, the Titans trade back in again. Bunch of trades. Buffalo trades back again out of the first round entirely. Titans trade up to get Keldrick Falk with the 31st overall pick. Again, when you're talking about a guy in almost said Mike Vrable, we're talking about Vrabel after the break. When you're talking about a guy like, what's my guy's name? Robert Saleh. I was blanking his name. Robert Saleh, the head coach of the Titans. They brought in a lot of defensive players in free agency. Again, it was only a matter of time before they addressed that side of the ball in the draft. They go with Carnell Tate. Let's get Cam Ward a weapon, but they get Keldrick Falk, who a lot of people like. There's some size, advantages that he brings to the table. He's 6'5". I mean, he's a monster. Titans are hoping he can be their pass rusher for years to come. And then finally, last pick of the first round, Jadarian Price going to the Seahawks. Again, Seattle's a team with not a lot of needs. Makes sense. They're the Super Bowl champions. It does feel like a little bit of a reach. Price is probably the second best running back in this draft. Funny, the two best backs are both from Notre Dame. Seattle obviously lost Kenneth Walker in free agency. Again, when you're the Super Bowl champions, you have the last pick of the first round. You can reach. Like, you have that flexibility more so than other teams. I don't know if this is the way I would have gone. Honestly, Seattle's in the spot where with Jermon McCoy still on the board, I actually, in my second to last mock draft, I had McCoy falling all the way to Seattle because I did think teams are not going to love the knee situation. Seattle lost a corner free agency. They'll take him. Little surprised the Seahawks didn't go Jermon McCoy. At number 32, they go Jadarian Price. It's not a bad pick. Seattle does well with running backs, but it's not what I would have done. But hey, John Schneider's one of the best GMs in the business, so he knows what he's doing. All right, so there's my breakdown of round one. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the latest on the news regarding Mike Vrable and Dianna Russini and how that could affect the Patriots moving forward. It's not looking so hot in New England. We'll get to that in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on this NFL Draft Live Reaction Friday. Speaking of live draft reaction shows, we'll be back in 48 minutes from now, or I guess 47 minutes from now, at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific, live on the Grid Network via YouTube, via X. I'll be live on my own personal channel as well, Carving Up with Bryson Carver on YouTube, on Twitch. So very, very excited about that. Maybe live on Instagram as well. We didn't do that last night. Maybe we'll do it tonight on the Grid Network and on Carving It Up with Bryson Carver. And I believe Mike Guido's, you can see right there with me on his X account. So we're going to be live again tonight to recap rounds 2 through 3 to react to each and every pick of the second round. So listen, after my show's over, got a couple segments left, but after the show's over, hey, get you a bite to eat and then tune back in for nights 2. I keep mixing up night 2, round 2 through 3. I want to say night 2 through 3. Rounds 2 through 3 of the draft, night 2. Stay tuned. We would greatly appreciate if you stop by and chime in to the chat as we go forward. So, I'll be totally candid and transparent. So what I'm about to talk about has been basically a 2-week story to this point. And when it initially started, I'm like, I don't think this is worth a segment. If it would feel a little gossipy, like I don't want to get into the business of doing segments on people's personal lives. I was like, I feel kind of messy doing. I don't want to do that. But as time has gone on, and as more stuff has come out, more information about the nature of the relationship between Mike Vrable and Dianna Russini. Mike Vrable, obviously the head coach of the New England Patriots, and Dianna Russini, the now former insider / reporter for The Athletic. And now it's getting to the point where it's okay. It's from a PR perspective, this is kind of a disaster for the New England Patriots. So we'll discuss it now. So for those that maybe haven't seen, it was reported by the New York Post 2 weeks ago in a series of photos showing Mike Vrable and Dianna Russini, at I think it was an adults-only resort. And initially, I'll be honest, when you look at the photos, like you could definitely tell it's Vrabel. I've quoted Dianna Russini multiple times as it pertains to her reporting. I think she's been very, very good at her job. So I know what she looks like. I didn't initially, by those pictures, like you couldn't really tell it was Russini. What you could tell, because in the pictures, Vrabel, they've got like hands locked, arms around each other. You can tell, like, okay, Mike Vrabel's wife is blonde, and this woman is not blonde. That is not Mike Vrabel's wife, and they are very close. So obviously there's some, you imagine, alleged extramarital affair business going on here. And again, the second we get into a discussion of, well, this guy's having an affair. Listen, I've heard people say like, oh, there's a tons of extramarital affairs that happen in sports. This is a fact. This is something that's exclusive to pro sports or exclusive to fame. You know somebody in your person. We all know somebody who's cheated on their significant other. Like that's the reality of it. And so if you're in a situation with, okay, hey, if we're going to do a segment with Mike Vrable, we should do it for everybody, basically. Where this becomes a topic, where this becomes a problem for the Patriots is, okay, now Vrabel goes to the media yesterday and he says, I'm not going to be available for day 3 of the draft, which is tomorrow, Saturday, rounds 4 through 7. So I think rounds 4 through 7 takes, just the draft process itself takes like 6 hours. And so the head coach is not going to be in the warm. The head coach, because he's going to counseling. And so at this point, I don't think Vrabel's like getting fired. Where it becomes interesting, I said after the Super Bowl that and this was before the offseason, I think the Patriots have had a pretty good offseason. But if the Patriots do take a step back, and the overwhelming likelihood is they will. They won 14 games and made the Super Bowl. The only way they get better is if they win the Super Bowl. So they're almost certainly going to take a step back. But if it's demonstrative, if we find ourselves in a spot where it's week 13, the Patriots are just watching. There's always one great team from a year before that is not good the following year. The Patriots aren't beyond that. The Chiefs were awful last year. It can happen to anybody. If the Patriots are like 5-6, fighting for their playoff lives, like Buffalo's running away with the division, they're just trying to get the 7 seed, and maybe Drake May takes a step back, and now players are being asked about, and you could maybe see some articles written about, okay, what's the locker room situation like? Players are getting asked about, hey, your coach had a very, very public affair with an NFL insider. Where's that at? By the way, let's keep it a buck. A.J. Brown's going to be coming into that building. And I've said it before, A.J. Brown's a great player and I think a really good dude. He's not always the best teammate, as we've seen in Philadelphia. Like this could turn into a toxic locker room pretty quickly. And maybe I'm overestimating. Maybe we're all in the social media age. Whatever happens now is the biggest that ever right? Like that's how it is. We overreact to everything in today's day and age. So maybe this isn't a story that lasts forever, but it does feel like with the head coach of the team not being available for one of the days of the draft for over half of the NFL draft, rounds 4 through 7, it's over half the draft. That does become a bit of a problem for New England. And listen, I'm not going to the specific, Twitter journalists, so to speak, digging up old interview clips featuring these two and featuring stuff that she said on national television. Like there's a level of when you now understanding in context that her and Vrabel have been clearly in a relationship, whether it's 6 years consecutively or on and off. I mean, there's a photo of them in a bar from 2020 of them kissing. when you watch interviews with her, it's like, oh gosh, she's like dropping like little like nuggets that we wouldn't understand without this context. It's messy, and I feel terrible for the spouses of these two people and for the kids and families. Like it's terrible. I don't want to do a lot of discussion into the specifics of the affair because A, we don't know everything, and B, I'm not TMZ. Like that's not shoot. Even TMZ they don't cover affairs very often. Like it's just kind of it's an unfortunate fact of life, but it's a fact of life. We all know somebody, multiple people who've cheated on their significant other. Like that's an unfortunate fact of life, and it's all too common. It's for the Patriots. How big of a distraction does this become? Now, fortunately, if Mike Vrable had the resume or the recent history of, give an example, I don't know. Brian Dable, for example. I don't know. Brian Dable, like a coach who just got fired. It's like, oh yeah, he's gone. We were thinking about firing him anyway, but now he's brought an extra distraction. He's out of here. Vrabel, this goes in any industry. We talked about this a few weeks ago with the Jaden Ivey story. Like, Jaden Ivey said similar homophobic things, Anthony Edwards said similar homophobic things that Jaden Ivey said, kind of in that same vein. Anthony Edwards isn't getting cut because he's Anthony Edwards. Jaden Ivey got cut because he's Jaden Ivey. He's not essential. If Mike Vrabel wasn't essential to the Patriots, they'd have moved on from him by now because of the distraction that this has potentially caused. But if this continues, and if the Patriots, listen, I said it earlier, we talk about worst to first teams, there's often first to worst teams, or at least teams that had aspirations of contention that vastly underachieved for whatever reason, injuries, whatever, tough schedules. I mean, Kansas City went to 3 straight Super Bowls and then won 6 games. And most of that came before Mahomes tore his ACL. It can happen to anybody. If that happens to New England, and this story lingers and players are being asked about it, and I mean, you think, do you want to be asked by the media about your boss's affair? Like, probably not. This could get messy. And the good news is, if you're the Patriots, you would have rather it not happen in the build-up to the draft. But now, okay, you're going to have rookie minicamp OTAs, but then you're going to have a month and a half, 2-month stretch where guys aren't going to be in the building that much. You'll have time. We got 3 months between now and training camp. Guys are going to be asked about this at training camp. Vrabel's certainly going to be asked a lot about this during training camp. How New England handles this, I think, might literally dictate the outcome of their 2026 season. What was the motto of the Patriots? Belichick, I've knocked Belichick for a lot of things. Belichick was good, by and large. Keep the main thing, on to Cincinnati, no distractions, do your job. This is kind of the opposite of that. So this has gotten really messy really quickly for the New England Patriots, and I'm curious to see how they handle it moving forward. So I just feel terrible for her husband and for his wife. Terrible. So we'll see how this continues to play out. Well, I think the thing that shocked me the most was how long this has been going on. Now, again, sometimes affairs get found out, decades after the fact, but like this is shocking in the sense of the details, in the sense of, again, some of the stuff that Dianna Russini would say on air. It's like, oh my God, like this is really, really messy. So I feel bad for the families involved because it sucks for them. Okay, to the NBA playoffs, then we'll sort of do a brief preview of rounds 2 through 3, and then we'll get out here briefly before we start, obviously, our rounds 2 through 3 draft show in about a half hour. So I didn't get a chance to watch any of the games live last night, any NBA playoff games live because we were doing the draft show, but it was an eventful night of basketball. The Raptors crushed the Cavs. Scotty Barnes was unbelievable. We have Scotty's stat line in this game. Scotty Barnes, he had 33 points, 11 assists. He was sensational. James Harden, more turnovers than field goals. Here's the playoff Harden, coming back to fruition once again. And I think, listen, Cleveland's going to win this series. I think the Cavs in 6. So with Toronto winning in blowout fashion, I still feel pretty good about Cavs in 6. Home teams win every single game. They say the series doesn't start till the road team wins. Cleveland wins a game 4. Game 4 is on Sunday, right? Yes, so they got plenty of time in between games. Hawks beating the Knicks 109 to 108. So it was a game. I went back and watched this whole game, and especially the fourth quarter. Atlanta had control for most of this basketball game. I could be wrong. I think their biggest lead was 16. It was double digits. And the Knicks kind of made a crazy run. They couldn't get stops, but basically the Knicks were trading, or the Knicks were trading twos for Atlanta, for threes for them. OG Anunoby at some big-time shots. Brunson got an and-one late. It's like, the Knicks are going to steal this thing. And Atlanta gets some stops. Brunson ended up airballing a three and the second to last possession for the Knicks. And CJ bleeping McCollum. Back-to-back game winners for this guy. On the road at MSG in Game 2. And then in Game 3 in Atlanta. And now the Hawks have a 2-1 lead. And credit where it's due as well. Credit where it is due. Because I was hard on him, but more so hard on the people. And I'm going to continue to be hard on the people who act as if Steve Kerr sabotaged Kuminga. Like, okay, we don't have to go into it today, but it could not be further from the truth. He gave him every opportunity to be successful. And by the way, he just didn't fit. And he was a great teammate through all of it. Like, I don't want to bash Kuminga for any of this. Like, and I think most Warriors fans feel the same way. Anyone who knows Kuminga knows he's a good kid, a good teammate. Jonathan Kuminga last night stepped up for Atlanta. 21 points off the bench, 17 of 14 from the field. And he was one who stole the basketball. He didn't steal it from Jalen Brunson, but I guess he gets credit for taking the ball from Brunson at the end of the game. Knicks are, it's not breaking news, Knicks are in some real trouble right now. Game 4 on the road in Atlanta. That game is going to be, is that tomorrow night? Yes, tomorrow night at 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific in Atlanta. The Knicks are 2.5-point road favorites. So Vegas is like, there's no way they're going to go down 3-1 in the series. If they do, this would be a disaster. I picked the Knicks to win the East. A lot of other folks did. They got to at least get to the conference finals. You moved on from Coach Tibbs. And another thing, too, is, Becky Hammond is probably running a victory lap right now because she took Becky Hammond, the head coach of the Vegas Aces, does a fantastic job. She was on the NBA Today, I think, before the season, or maybe during the summer, whenever it was. And she said, yeah, I don't think you can win a championship with Jalen Brunson as your best player. Now, I don't disagree with that take. We've had 2 small players in modern NBA history lead their teams to multiple championships, and their names are Isaiah Thomas and Steph Curry, and they happen to be 2 of Steph's one of the 10 greatest players ever. Isaiah Thomas, you can make a case he's one of the 15 greatest players ever. Brunson, I don't think is going to reach those highs. But I was like, he can get him to a finals, though, right? He got him to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Like, a lot of his issues have been he's just gassed at the end of postseason because of Tibbs' rotations. Brunson's been bad in the fourth quarters of these games thus far. Feels like he's due. Again, he was a clutch player of the year last year, but he struggled in the fourth quarters against the Pacers a year ago. Like, this has been a rough series for the reputation of the clutch reputation of Jalen Brunson. Knicks better respond, or if they go on 3-1, I don't think they're coming back. Could be wrong, but I don't think it's going to happen. So kudos to the Hawks. They've been one of the hottest teams in basketball post All-Star break. They made some trades that helped them in a tremendous way, and now they're 2 wins away from a conference semifinals appearance, which would be a great year for them. And Quinn Snyder as well has done a great job for them. And then last night, the late game. Now, I was able to catch some of this game, or that's at least the back half of this game post-draft. The Timberwolves pummeling the Nuggets, 113-96. I said before the series, I picked Denver to win the series. I thought Denver, let me back up. As recently as a month and a half ago, I was kind of out on the Nuggets as a Western Conference contender because, A, they were kind of inconsistent. I think at that point, they were the 6th seed in the West. I'm like, I don't believe them. They're not very good defensively. And then into the regular season, they reel off 12 straight. It's like, holy cow. And then Jokic has maybe the best game by anybody all year, I guess outside of Bam's 83 in theory, when he drops freaking 40 on Victor Wembanyama in San Antonio. It's like, oh, boy, Denver's kind of riding in championship form. Maybe they're getting healthier, but now Aaron Gordon's beat up again. And we got to, again, as I said earlier, when I was discussing the Browns and giving them credit for their draft, we have to be fair. I don't think actually, let me back up. Barry Grant Jr. is more, shout out to Barry, All Even Podcast, dear friend of mine. Barry's been harder on Rudy Gobert than I have. Outside of Barry, I don't think anyone's been harder on Rudy Gobert than yours truly. of him being an overrated defender, of it being a crime. He has 4 DPOYs, and the AD and Draymond have 1 combined. Rudy Gobert straight clamping Jokic. Putting him in a torture chamber for 3 straight games. Show the numbers. What Jokic has done against everybody else and against Gobert, just in terms of pure shooting. 14 of 30 against everybody else, under 50%, under par for Jokic, but not terrible. 12 of 35 against Rudy Gobert. Just straight shutting him down, frustrating him. And listen, I said after game 2, when Jokic went, what was it? I think he was 1 for 7, 1 for 8 in the fourth quarter. Really struggled when Minnesota won that close game in Denver. I said, okay, he struggled in the fourth. Gobert's been shutting him down. Gobert indirectly, but also Jaden McDaniels very directly, by name, calls him out. He's like, yeah, he's a terrible defender. Yeah, the Nuggets, all bad defenders. Jamal, Jokic, they're all bad defenders. And for him to come out and lay an egg is like, I expected Jokic to have, I think I said on my show the other night, I was like, it doesn't feel like Jokic is going to go for like 35, 14, and 13 or something. No. And so that's Saturday night game. That's Saturday night in primetime, by the way. Denver at Minnesota is a 1.5-point favorite. Look, I said coming to the series, people are discounting Minnesota way too quickly. I know Ant's not healthy. I get it. But this is a rivalry. Minnesota matches up well against Denver. And again, Minnesota a year ago was a 6 seed and got to the Western Conference Finals. I don't think they would have if Steph Curry were healthy for the second round. But hey, year before they got to the conference finals. This is a team that's battle-tested in the playoffs the last couple of years. Like, they're not scared. And the thing, if you're a T-Wolves fan or if you're somebody like a San Antonio, in theory, that could play the Timberwolves in the second round, you're like, oh, Ant, and maybe he won't because he's not fully healthy. Ant's not playing his best ball right now. Like, this is very much a collaborative effort by the Timberwolves. When he does, this team becomes kind of interesting in the West. And again, said it once, I'll say it again. Last 2 years, they went one of the last 2 teams standing in the West. Not Denver, who they've beaten. Not the Lakers. Not Houston. OKC's the champions. They didn't go to the conference finals in 2024 because Dallas beat them. But so Minnesota's not scared of Denver. So let me go and predict the next 3 days of playoff games before Monday's show. Celtics, Sixers tonight. I think the Celtics win. The Celtics every single year. We did a whole segment on it. Every single year, every single round, with few exceptions, they always lose a home game they shouldn't. They've got that out of the way. I think they win out from here. I think they still gentlemen sweep the Sixers. Embiid could be back. He's not going to play tonight. Could be back for a potential game 4. We'll see. Oh my goodness. Breaking news just came in. We talk about guys being out. Kevin Durant is out for game 3 tonight. Whoa. Boy, Houston's cooked. Houston is cooked. The Shams literally just tweeted this. Kevin Durant has been ruled out for game 3 tonight against the Los Angeles Lakers due to a left ankle sprain. So this is a different injury. He had his knee issue that kept him out of game 1. Now he's got an ankle problem. He's out tonight. Houston's cooked. Because even if they are able to win tonight and KD comes back for game 4, like he's got an ankle issue. Now guys are beat up, but usually wear and tear injuries in the NBA, usually those take more form by late second round conference finals. And now obviously in the NBA finals, we're in game 3 of round 1. Like, is Austin Reeves coming back for the Lakers? Like Houston's a 9.5-point favorite as we sit here today. You better hammer Lakers plus 9.5 while you can, because that thing's going to plummet. Houston will probably still be favored because they're at home. They're desperate. They're still a good basketball team. Now, maybe the Lakers take Houston lightly. I don't know. I feel like LeBron. Okay, Austin Reeves is a game time decision, it looks like. That's the latest we've got on him. Game time decision. I think he's going to play. And the fact that Reeves is back before Luka, hamstrings are weird, but you got to feel good about that if you're the Lakers. That is amazing. Kevin Durant's out tonight for Houston. So that changes my pick. I was initially going to go Houston. I don't know if I was going to take the minus 9.5. But now I look at this like, okay, Lakers won the first 2. Bron was fantastic in both. The thing is, the role players for Houston are going to be better tonight. The role players for the Lakers are going to be worse tonight. That's how it works in the playoffs. If Reeves is back, because the line just came down, I literally, in real time, it just came down to Houston minus 7.5. I think this thing's going to get down to 3.5 in favor of the Rockets. Like, this line's going to plummet. So if you could bet the Lakers and the points, do it right now. Braun and Reeves back. Or Braun's back. Reeves back and Braun being there. LeBron might kind of have like a blood in the water type of feel right now. Might be smelling blood in the water and be like, let's just go up 3-0. If we lose game 4, we lose game 4, close them out in LA on whatever it is, Wednesday night. And then we get time off before we get OKC. Now, again, I think I said before the playoffs started, whoever wins between Houston and the Lakers are dead on arrival against the Thunder. I know Jalen Williams is out. I don't care. Matchup-wise, it is an atrocious, it's a terrible matchup for the Lakers. It is not a good one for Oklahoma or for Houston as well. Okay, here we go. It's down to 6. I wonder how low this line's going to drop by the time we're done with the show, which we won't that much longer, but it's now down to Houston minus 6.5. I'm taking the Lakers. I think the Lakers win tonight. I think they win close, go up 3-0. I think Houston's demoralized right now. There's a fracture in the locker room. Udoka's just been completely outcoached by J.J. Redick in the series. He's been out game plan in real time by LeBron. Shocking development. Lakers are going to win a playoff series. Kudos to them. Again, I said before the year started, maintained throughout the year, even when they were hot in March, they have a second-round ceiling. At least they'll hit it. I think they're going to win tonight. Katie's out, so that's devastating. If Katie was playing, I was going to pick the Rockets. Not minus 9.5, but I was going to pick them. This is shocking. Spurs, Blazers tonight. Speaking of guys being in and out of the lineup, Wemby could play tonight. Like, it was good news when Shams came out and said, yeah, Wemby flew with the Spurs to Portland. So initially you're thinking, okay, he's probably going to be ready for game 4 on Sunday. There's a chance he plays tonight. And I think the line kind of reflects that. Spurs are 3.5-point road favorites. I'm going to go San Antonio with or without Wemby. If Wemby doesn't play the next 2, which seems kind of unlikely that he'll miss the next 2, I was going to take Spurs in game 3, Portland in game 4, Spurs to win out from there. But if Wemby's back, certainly if he's back tonight, if definitely he's back by game 4, I think the Spurs still win the series in a gentleman's sweep, which I had before the series began. I think there's a level of kind of being stunned with how Wemby went down. This team isn't used to closing playoff games, young, inexperienced. The team with some of the veterans, Robert Williams and Drew Holiday, kind of took advantage of that with Portland. So in game 2, so I think the Spurs are going to win tonight, and I do think they cover the 3.5. Tomorrow, let's run through these real quick, and then we'll get out of here because we got to do the second round show. Pistons and Magic on the road. Pistons are a 2.5-point favorite. I think they win this game. That game 2 performance was good to see. I think we could see both games 3 and 4 be somewhat close because my main concern with Detroit remains. I don't trust them to have a second true shot creator outside of Cade Cunningham consistently, and we know how good Orlando's defense is. So I think both of these games could be close, but I will go with Detroit to win game 3 tomorrow. Thunder Suns. Thunder should win. Again, I had the Thunder in a sweep. Even without Jalen Williams, I maintain that. The flopping, though, is I don't want to develop too much time to this, but it's at this point, man. Shea, to me, is the second best player in the league, and if Jokic gets knocked out of round 1, I think Shea's probably the best player in the league, if you don't feel that way about him already. Don't shoot the messenger, Devin Booker. He's right. I mean, this team is officiated different. And listen, y'all know, anyone who's watched the show for any length of time knows the blame the refs thing drives me crazy probably more than anything in sports. That's loser's mentality. And by the way, the refs aren't the reason that the Suns are down 2-0. They're down 2-0 to the Thunder because the Thunder are way better. But it goes back to a year ago. This team is officiated differently than the other 29. Shea is even by superstar standards, and Shea is a superstar. Going to be the back-to-back MVP, and deservedly so. He's officiated differently than other superstars. If other guys make the same awkward, non-basketball movements that this guy makes, they do not get the whistle that he gets. And the thing that I've said about Shea so many times, and I'll say it again, James Harden, to a degree, needed to be a foul baiter in order to be a consistently great scorer. Shea doesn't. Shea's a 55% score from the field. Even forget the number. Just watch him. He finishes well at the rim. His mid-range is on. The step-back baseline jumper is just money every time. His three-point shot has gotten better and better over the years. He's a great scorer. And I'm not saying don't get to the free throw line. You should get to the free throw line. But it's the method and how it's going on. And then OKC's allowed to just abuse teams on defense. They're officiated differently than other teams. And it's not going to matter in this series, again, nor should it. I'm curious to see how this continues to develop over the course of the playoffs. Quick news, Nickeil Alexander-Walker just won Most Improved Player. He would have gotten my vote. I did that last week. I would have given him the vote for Most Improved Player. So kudos to him. Hawks are in good shape right now. And okay, and then we just had the KD news, which is shocking. KD's out tonight. I think the Lakers are going to win game 3 and go up 3-0, and the series will be over. Knicks-Hawks tomorrow night. I picked the Knicks to not to win the title, to go to the finals before the season. I will die on this hill. I'll take the Knicks in a close one in game 4. Brunson is due for a fourth quarter show, big time performance. McCollum's really outshone him in the last 2 games. Brunson needs to show up in game 4, and I think he does in a close fourth quarter win. Nuggets, T-Wolves. Denver has to win. Now, I wouldn't rule Denver out if they're down 3-1 just by virtue of them having Jokic, but Jokic is one of, if not the reason they're down 2-1 right now. I said he was due before game 3, and then he had another dud. Gobert shut him down again for a third straight game. We got to see him bounce back. And I think the Nuggets do. I think we have a 2-2 series after that one with Denver retaking home court. Cavs, Raptors, I think the Cavs win game 4. Spurs, Blazers, Wemby, I imagine will be back by that point. I think the Spurs win game 4 in Portland to go up 3-1. Celtics, Sixers. Celtics, again, I maintain even after the game 2 loss, the Celtics will gentleman sweep. Lakers, Rockets. With or without Katie, I think Houston wins game 4. I think it's going to be, though, a 3-1 series going back to LA, and the Lakers will close them out on Wednesday. Just terrible injury luck for KD. Feel bad for him. And for the Lakers, they get Austin Reeves back potentially tonight. So we'll see. Okay, before we get out of here, and again, literally in under 20 minutes, 15 minutes and change, we're going to be live on the air reacting to round 2 and 3 of the NFL Draft 2026. Super duper excited about that. The story to me tonight is pretty straightforward. It's Jermon McCoy. Now, you might say I'm a little biased as a Vols fan. Jermon McCoy, to me, is the most technically sound, most gifted corner in this draft with respect to Mansour Delane, who I think is going to be a really good player. Jermon McCoy has exceptional ball skills. He's great in one-on-one man-to-man coverage. So he can do it all. And he's fallen for one reason and one reason alone, and that's concern over the knee. That's just what it is. He didn't play all of last season. I think whoever gets this guy is getting a top 10 to 12 player in this draft at pick number whatever. I mean, he could go first pick of the 3rd round to San Francisco. They need help in their secondary. That to me is a story. And there's some good corners on the board. Terrell, Colton Hood. There's some good DBs on the board. You also got some pretty good receivers on the board. Denzel Boston is still available. I thought the Eagles might take him, but then when Makai Lemon's available, you got to take him in that spot. Caden McDonald not being the first nose tackle on the board. He'll be at best the 3rd nose tackle off the board from the Ohio State Buckeyes. That's surprising. Got some good pass rushers. Zion Young, Cassius Howell. Eli Stowers, I could see him ended up in Philadelphia. I'm really, really excited to see where Chris Brazzell, my man out of Tennessee, ends up. So we'll see. So second and third round coverage on the Grid Network begins in literally 15 minutes live on the Grid Network and on my YouTube channel, Carving It Up with Bryson Carver. We'll be on YouTube. We'll be on Twitch, on X, on Instagram, all the major social media platforms. We'll be live recapping rounds 2 through 3 tonight on the NFL Draft. Guido will be joining me about midway through the show, so I'll be anchoring this thing solo, so super excited about it. Tune in, again, in literally 15 minutes, right here on the Carving Up YouTube channel, on the Grid, Twitch, X, Instagram, the whole bit. We hope to see you there. Have a great next 15 minutes before I see you then. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. And the Steelers still better not bring Aaron back. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.